Hello and welcome to another episode of the University Duel Podcast, where we talk about university life and more. And with me today I have Tosin. Hi Tosin.
Hi.
It's nice to meet you. So tell us your full name and a little bit about yourself and what you do.
Okay, my full name officially is Tosin Ojo.
What's the unofficial one?
Well, unofficially I like to be called Tosin Enyanke Kesi.
Ooh. What, is that your maiden name?
Kind of my maiden name, but I also published a book in that name. So
awesome.
Yes. So I like to be called that. Yes, I am. Anyways,
okay.
For the time, so I like to be called
that.
Anyways, but for the conversation, Tosin, what do I do? Day job. I'm an investment professional. So I work with one of the private equity firms in Nigeria, and I'm a partner there. And I have a couple of other interests around investing and around just education.
So today we're going to talk about the state of the country versus Gen Z survival tactics, and if Gen Z have what it takes to save Nigeria. So we're in the T-Pain era, and I think the socio-political state of Nigeria has been quite peculiar for me as it were a Gen Z, especially if you take it back to things. So I turned 18 2018, so I wasn't allowed to vote then. But from 2020, there was a shift with the EndSARS protests, and then by the time the elections came about, there were a lot more people in said demographic that were more interested in politics, were more interested in social change, and speaking of what they believe to be right and whatnot. But we also, based on the realities of what it is like in Nigeria and just building a nation as it were, we haven't exactly gotten what we wanted. And I just want to know if you feel that as a generation we have what it takes to survive Nigeria and to, if possible, even save it.
Yeah, that's a very... I like the context you gave, and I think this topic is very important.
Yes, it is.
I'll start first by saying the future of any country is in its youth.
Yep.
And yes, Gen Z has what it takes to save Nigeria, but they are not approaching it the right way. And that's what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah.
Right? The future of Nigeria is its youth, and Gen Z has what it takes to save Nigeria if they shift their mindset a little bit about their approaches. And I'm going to go a little bit into details into why I said that. Right? The first thing is that there's nothing new under the sun.
Absolutely.
Every old person was once a youth. One of the popular figures in Nigeria, literary figures in Nigeria, is Wole Soyinka. People like to drag him a lot because of maybe some of his political affiliations now and stuff. But if you read about Wole Soyinka's life, I read one of his books, You Must Set Forth at Dawn, which was like a biopic of like his life, you know. And what he wrote about the role he played as maybe 20-something, 30-something-year-old guy in the politics of the Southwest. How he entered into a radio station when they were trying to announce Akitola as winner in the action group of the then 60s, I think. And he went to the radio station and disrupted the announcement. How during the Biafra war went to speak to Ojukwu in the Southeast.
Yes,
and the role he played, if you read those things, you realize that people, while they were, maybe you call them Gen Z, the equivalent of Gen Z, they've also been very passionate and very interested to drive change, to drive social change.
Absolutely.
And the lack of success today that we may want to say about Nigeria is not for lack of effort. It's not for lack of effort. I'm going to give another example. Funmilayo Ransome Kuti wasn't even this generation of Wole Soyinka at all, right? Many of us, I heard of her from my own parents. He died in the 70s in the Kalakuta Republic thing. No, Bolanle Osipiters did a great job doing the biopic. I hope a lot of Gen Z watched that movie. Because if you don't understand what has happened, you'll be hitting your head in the same wall without figuring out how else you need to approach it.
Yes.
I know what they call insanity, doing the same thing the same way and expecting a different result. Now, Funmilayo Ransome Kuti, when you can say she was also much younger, she staged an up, and this was like what, in the 40s? At that time, for a woman to unseat a monarch, that is daring. That is something that happens in a century, in a lifetime. So there's nothing new in about wanting to push for social change. That's the first thing.
Okay.
And then, but the approach is you need to go and learn about what the people do and why did they fail. The people who have tried Why did they fail? If you don't understand the system you are trying to change, you cannot change it.
Yes.
Why is this system, why is this country, why is this political system so vicious? This Nigerian political system, why is it vicious? Since we came back to democracy since 1999, why have we had a political class that are extremely vicious in holding on to political power? Why? You know, you need to understand that, and then you then need to now figure out how to beat them at their game. Which brought me to the approach. Gen Z has a lot of energy. You have the power that the generations before you did not have, which is the ability to use technology, social media to spread things quickly. If this was in the 90s, if we had social media in the 90s, there was no coup that would have been successful in Nigeria. Because before those coups would have been, it would have been trending on Twitter, and they would have carried whoever is planning the coup, you know. So you had the power of that, but you need to use it well and not misuse it. You need to use it not to spread like misinformation. You need to use it to galvanize a change in people's mindsets, and a change that can produce long-term thinking. And that's the second thing I want to talk about. You need to understand that it's a long game.
Yeah.
It's a long game. Nation building in itself is a long game. I've mentioned Fumila and Kuti. I've mentioned people that fought for democracy, people that fought for independence. If you go way, way back, you hear people about Macaulay, when they were fighting for this independence, the emancipation from the colonial masters. You know, nation building is a long game, and sometimes there's a detour. Sometimes in a journey of a country, they can take a 20-year detour to go and do nonsense, right? Maybe they voted, the wrong people, person. And then they stay in power for so long and they can take a detour. But you don't abandon a national cause because you took a long detour. There's no country that eventually have developed that did that.
Yeah, so as much as I hear you and I kind of agree with your points, there are three different things that I want us to speak to. The first one is the lack of history in all our institutions, which was a government's decision to do. The other thing is the parents. During NSARS, like 80% of my friends were not allowed to leave their homes, and more than even that 80%, their parents are pressuring them to get out of the country. And then finally, as much as I understand and I acknowledge that nation building takes time, I mean, if you look at a lot of the countries we're seeking to be like, these are people that have built their democracy for over 200 years. But it may seem to the Nigerian population and generation that every year when the baton is passed to the next generation, it still seems like we're going backwards. So it's like, how long is it actually going to take to, as it were, get to where we need to be?
Okay, thank you. So first on history, you know, we can make progress or we can make excuse, right? Like, if you truly have an interest in something, you will go and like find it out. I was a science student. I never did history in school, right? But the kind of political consciousness I have and the interest in social change just made me like find stuff, you know, to read, to understand about Nigeria, about other countries, about so many things. Because you really cannot, again, you can't change what you don't understand or what you don't know. So you need to know first. You need to know why are things the way they are. That really is the first question people always need to kind of answer, right? So, and sometimes even when you rely on the former system, they teach you what they want you to know. You know, there's also that, they're sort of brainwashing. They teach you what they want you to know. You don't actually know the history. So you have to read books. There's a lot of books you can buy, right? I remember when I was in school, and there are friends of mine that would buy Tell magazine, the news and everything. You have to, if you're interested enough, you have to find where to get the information. I think that's the first thing. Now, this will not apply to all of Gen Z. But I'm saying that for those, if you are dissatisfied enough and you think that you should do something about it, then you should do it. You should approach it the right way so that you don't burn out, right? And you know, you can sort of like understand like what you're doing. Yeah. That's the first thing. The second thing that you mentioned is parents. You say parents have always been like that. The parents are not going to change. I'm also a parent now. My daughter is 12. That when she's 18, down that to go and be protesting somewhere. Maybe I don't. But the reality is that if that's what she really wants to do, maybe she would, right? So the real question is, I mean, people are adults. And if you want to be treated like an adult, you should be an adult. And I don't think that protest is the only way that people can contribute to social change.
Absolutely.
So we kind of need to talk about this social change in a very elaborate way, right? Protest is one thing. The people that will not protest, the people that will galvanize grassroots support, the people that should join political
office.
parties.
Yeah.
They should join political parties. Go and join APC. Go and join PDP. Stop, or join Labour Party. Whatever you want to join. Join in mass. Join as a force, right? Because it's a numbers game. It has always been a numbers game. And human beings are generally not altruistic. Don't expect career politicians to hand over anything to you. Why? Why should they? Why? If you just sit back a little bit and think about it, why should they? Think about it from a very logical point of view. Why should they? Right? So if you go to the United States, you have young people that are in political parties. You know, they galvanize at ward level. They galvanize at local government level. I say this every time. How many people know how political parties function in Nigeria? How many people know how they are funded? You're Gen Z, you're enlightened, but you leave the political parties to the thugs in your area. They're the ones that go for ward meetings. And yes, I understand that. And by the way, the people we call talk, some of them are people that are just left behind by the system.
Absolutely.
I went to a public school all my life, from primary school. I have classmates from primary school that became area boys because the system left them behind. There are those in secondary school that became half area boys because the system left them behind. Because they have a secondary school education, at least they can do something, right? Because the system left them behind. We don't relate to the humanity of these people. Absolutely. We label them and you tell them, this one, but we don't relate to their humanity. Maybe if we relate to their humanity, maybe if we engage, maybe we can connect. Yeah. Because there's no way we're going to change this country by just a few Gen Z elites that believe that they deserve better than everybody else. Guess what? You've had it better than these people that are left behind. And these people that are left behind, maybe if you open their mind, they also will understand the opportunity that is better for me to galvanize for proper social change than to continue to be a tool in the hand of a politician just for a meal ticket, right? But you need to care enough, and you need to understand that nation building is not just elite versus the non-elite. You kind of need the collaboration of everybody, right, to be able to do it. And if you're an adult, some people will protest, some people will galvanize grassroots, some people should join political parties, some people should contest for election. Why can't you contest for local government chairman? Now we've done local government autonomy, right? Use Twitter, galvanize. Like, how many people actually go out to vote in Nigeria in local council elections? It's an off-council election. So many people don't even know when those elections happen. And guess what? This lack of information and interest is what has entrenched incumbent politicians in those places. Because they are afraid. Look at the obedience movement. People thought there was a joke, Nothing scares a politician than a movement because it's a numbers game. Yeah. Even if you want to rig, you need people in support of you to rig. Even if you want to rig, it's very difficult to rig where you are not popular. It is very difficult to rig where you're not popular, generally speaking, right? So now the third thing that you have said is time, how long you think has changed. I think the truth is we all need to have hope. One of the things I've seen that is rife with Gen Z is just this, and I don't blame them, right? But you need to also find a way to balance. You need to have hope, because generally in life, if you don't have hope, it's very difficult to move from one day to another, right? Development most times is incremental. If you do disruptive development or disruptive change, you will kill the system. You will kill the system. That's the truth. Development most times is incremental. When we talk about disruptive innovation, how many disruptive innovations can you count in the world? They're very few and far between. Most things happen. This iPhone 13 that I'm holding now, they did not jump from iPhone 1 to iPhone 10 in one day. They moved from whatever first iPhone they did. I'm sure if you put that first iPhone together with this iPhone, they look very funny. Yes. But if you put that first iPhone to the second iPhone, they look similar. Yeah. The second to the third look similar. But by the time it's getting to, this is 13, it should be the 16 now. By the time it's getting to iPhone 15 or 16, then it looked materially different from the first iPhone. That's how development happens. Change is very incremental. But if you don't pay attention to it and you don't look for the progress, you won't see the progress. You always think there was no progress. Because sometimes progress, not even sometimes, progress is there. And like I said, sometimes there's no progress because there's a detour. But you need to recognize a detour for what it is. It is a detour. Nation building is a long game.
So what's the way forward now?
We need Gen Z. First, the Gen Z, they are the hope of this country. So they cannot afford to be disillusioned. If you want to japa, you can japa. But you can japa and build skill and build capacity, and don't forget. And don't forget that you have a nation that you're coming back to. Because guess what? It's never the same. You are second tier, you are third tier.
Trump is even president.
It's never the same. We need an African, we need a black nation that can be the pride of the world. And Nigeria is the nation that can achieve that, because we're the biggest singular country with the largest population of black people anywhere in the world. This country is the hope of the pride of the black race. Whether those black people are in Africa, whether they are in Jamaica, whether they are in the diaspora, this nation is the pride, because this is where you find the largest number of black people anywhere in the world. So you can japa. I'm not against japa, but don't japa with the mindset of you are escaping, because there's really no escape. There's really no escape. Let's do whatever we can do to build this nation to a place of pride, and you do your own, I do my own, I do my own. The fire will spread.
Absolutely.
It will spread, and we will eventually have a nation that we can be proud of. Proud of. It won't be perfect. Everyone is still. America is still trying to perfect their democracy. The UK drama. The Labour Party now, what are they doing? They're literally just doing nonsense, sending the country behind. Right? It won't be perfect. There'll be detours in the pathway of a nation building, but let's be vested enough.
And be intentional.
Let's be intentional enough so that maybe by the time you are now 60, you can then have a nation you are proud of, so that your children will also not say, what did you do your time? You did not do anything. Because what goes around,
it comes around. Oh my days. Thank you so much for this conversation. It was really insightful. And I hope that the youth can figure out the way forward. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for having me.
And that is all on this episode of the University Duel Podcast. See you next time. Bye.